Happy Spiritual Sunday! Welcome to all our friends who are out there in cyberspace from all over the world. So I want to welcome you to Spiritual Sunday. Welcome the people who are here in Boca with us live. Those of you who are close, come and join us. We're here on Sundays, 11 o'clock. Once again, Karen did it. Finding the light through the darkness, which we all need, especially now. So Karen writes like this, and this is sort of in the middle of the section. Why did Moses need to beg so much just to go into the land of Israel? With all that he had done for all the nation, why did Moses still need to implore the Creator for this seemingly small request? When Moses' sister Miriam was sick with leprosy, Moses demanded of the Creator, heal her now, and she was healed. How can it be that Moses could, on the one hand, be arrogant and demanding, and at the same time be desperate to no avail? Moses knew that he had achieved such an elevated spiritual level that, had he entered Israel, he would have brought about the perfect unification of the physical world with the spiritual world, a unification that would have resulted in global peace and the end of pain, suffering, and death. Sounds good. Quote, Moses, you cannot enter the land because your action will create complete unity in the whole world. The people, however, have not yet finished correcting the negative aspects of themselves. Each person needs to go through his or her own process to complete his or her own spiritual mission. The Creator also told Moses that no person can take on another's process because each soul is a rock hewed from the same divine mountain. Each one needs to do his or her part to return the mountain whole. This is a profound lesson. Do we reject our own process? How can we transform our limited thoughts such as, what can I do? These are my circumstances. This is the way I was born. I have no choice. So it allows us to go right into the message this morning. So there's a very nice story in the beginning of the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, in the Bible. It says Moses is told by God to count the Israelites. So there's a lot of different commentaries on this idea of counting, etc., why he shouldn't have, etc. But God told him count. What they explain is, as he was counting, he was told by the heavenly voice the worth of that person. So let's say like Moses, we know, and we've talked here and there, Moses was worth all humanity. His spiritual energy, his spiritual consciousness enveloped everybody, every human being. So his worth was, whatever the numbers of people, millions of people in the planet at that point, or even today, he's worth 7.5 billion. So as Moses was going around counting people, he was told by this heavenly voice what the person was worth. Were they worth just one person, 2, 10, 100, 1,000, hundreds of thousands, etc.? So I want us to think for yourself today. What do you consider your worth? How do you establish your worth? Is it by the amount of money you have? Is it your status in life? Maybe you're the head of a business. Maybe you have employees. Maybe you're a vice president, etc. Do you measure it by your talents and abilities? Well, I play basketball great. I'm good in business, my mathematics, my science. I have the green thumb, all these things. And we start to give ourselves worth according to those things. But what is it really saying? How are we deciding our self-worth then? If we go by that, how much money I have. So what does that mean? So if I have $1 million in the bank, what's my worth? $1 million? No, let's really think about it objectively. When a person says my status, my talents, abilities, etc., what are we really comparing ourselves to? Other people, right? I have more money, less money than they have. I have more status or less than they have. I have more talent or ability than they have. So it's not just I have $1 million and that's my worth. I have $1 million and I'm comparing myself to those people who have less than $1 million in the bank. I'm the head of a business. I own the business. Well, now I'm comparing myself to the people who just work for a business. If you're following the idea, we are establishing our self-worth on some comparison to other people. Or I know some of you saying, oh no, I don't do that, Chaim. I don't do that. Okay, so then let's look at the other thing, that those of you who don't look at other people, what about what you see in the mirror? Ooh, that strikes home because you can't run away from that mirror. At some point during the day, you got to look in the mirror, you got to look at your reflection in the window at some point, and you establish your worth relative to what? Let's be honest, even then, when you're looking at yourself, you're still establishing your worth relative to other people in some way or another. I made a mistake with that person. I did this and this. So I'll embarrassingly share a story about me. Very often in the past, I'd like to think I'm over most of it, go to the gym, right? So you go, you're working out, and I know I've got to do this and this. I understand, what I've done before. But every now and then, what does that opponent do? That Satan, that adversary? He makes my eyes go over there and see this person, and it could be a man or a woman, it doesn't matter, in better shape than me. So what happens right away? Start to feel, well, I'm not quite in their shape. And then comes the thought, oh, but I'm more spiritual than they are. They're in better physical shape, but no, I'm in better spiritual shape. And I realize as soon as I say that, thank you, God, that those angels smack me. I said, really, that's the spiritual thing to say? I'm more spiritual is very opposite to truly being spiritual. Look at the good in the person. See the good. Okay, they're taking care of themselves, this and this. Why compare ourselves? But we have those kinds of things. Where does it come from? Oh, or the other thing. How many of us, whatever car you're driving, but when you happen to see somebody in a better car, a more expensive car, how many of you have that thought? First comes, of course, wish I had a car like that. And then comes, again, the opponent comes in our head and says, well, they must not be very nice people. Or they must be greedy people, right? Or they cheated in business to have money to buy that car, right? And right away, we create some negative scenario. How many of us do things like that? You look at somebody who has greater talent and ability, somebody who's, a movie star or a singer or whatever, but they can't be good people. They can't be nice. Oh, did you hear what they said about him? What they did, what they said, what they're doing, etc., etc. Somehow we got to tear them down. Again, why? Because we're establishing our self-worth compared to somebody else. Let that sink in for a minute. At least be honest with yourself. And those of you online, yes, not just the people here, you also. Stop and think. How do you compare yourself to other people? And how have you allowed that to establish some sense of your self-worth? And respectfully, but if some of you out there are saying, oh no, not me, then that Satan, that adversary, that parasite of ego and selfishness is right there, and he just won that battle. He just won that battle. Because there cannot be a human being on this earth that's not in some way, shape, or form still has a little comparison self-worth. As Karen used to say, if you're breathing, you still have some work to do. So let's look at that. But remember, what is it that the ego wants? What is it that the Satan wants? Divisiveness. So find a way to divide. So many of us, let's say, we don't really look at, maybe we've overcome it, looking at people's religion, looking at their culture, looking at the color of their skin, etc., etc. But there's still something, like we said, maybe it's the status, maybe it's the car they drive, maybe it's who do they think they are? We are judging their ego, right? Their arrogance. Well, remember the old saying, if you're pointing one finger that way, you got a few of them pointing back at you. Or as the Kabbalists say, what you see out there is a reflection of something similar inside of us. So then our job is not to establish our worth based on other people. And here I want to distinguish, and again, as I do these types of things, some of you may have a different definition, and that's okay. I want you to understand how I will define it, and then if you've defined it in the opposite terms or whatever, just understand the consciousness, and then you'll have the way to work through it. So for today, there's a distinction in my mind between our self-worth, or what we consider our worth, and our value. There's a difference between worth and value. So, what is our value? So I'll give you another example. I don't know why I'm laying myself bare today, but okay. So my very first job that I had to interview for was after college. Yeah, I see your smiles. So Chaim, what did you do before? Were you a trust fund baby? No, but I did have a father who owned a retail store. And so basically all my work was for my father, quote, the family business. So after college, I'm applying for this job and I have no idea, because I've never had to do it before. I have no idea what you're supposed to do, how. I just knew that I did well in college. I graduated. I considered myself intelligent. And I could do this job that I was interviewing for. So I go to the interview, great and wonderful. I get the job. We establish a salary. Okay, my worth, establish a salary. About 6 months into the job, I'm working with another person who's the same job, same qualifications, the same responsibilities, etc. And one day we got into our talking about salary. And I find out now we're doing literally the same job, same basic resume, etc. And he's getting paid $200 more than I am. What did I realize? Come to find out, because I remember actually, this was the funny thing. I saw him come into the interview. So let me give you now that picture. So he came into the interview, probably as many of you have, in like a suit and a tie. I came in the interview with nice jeans and a button-down shirt, unbuttoned like this, casual. And so I came to realize that they understood, the person who interviewed me. Yes, in their eyes, they saw value in me. But in essence, my self-worth was casual. That's what I understood, because I had no other understanding. I had no other, let's call it wisdom, of interviewing. So then my self-worth, so to speak, was $200 less than this other guy. He came in his suit and his tie, etc., etc. That was the only difference. So he, if you're following, had in essence that greater self-worth. Yes, he's got to come in, look good, presentable, etc., etc. Or even if you want to say that's just the proper thing to do when you go into interview, because you want to show them that you have value in yourself, a greater self-worth. So what I'm driving at is the company got the same value from him and from me, but our self-worth was measured by our own evaluation of our own self. So in many ways, you and I and most people on earth, we don't understand our real value. We understand our worth. Again, based on our money, based on our economics, politics, whatever you want to status, where you live, how you live, the car you drive, etc., etc. We establish it that way in comparison to others. But I want us to understand, yes, business will take advantage of our value and pay whatever we feel we're worth. Now, how many of you, it just reminds me of a conversation I had with a few people. What's your worth? You go into that interview, are you already saying, well, if they offer me X, I'll take it, right? So I'll try and ask for a little more, but I'm already willing to negotiate down, so to speak. Right? And again, I'm not telling you not to do those things. What I really want us to understand is the consciousness behind it. So we had in one of the classes, and if you haven't watched, I encourage you to go on Kabbalah.com and watch Awakening Abundance. But in one of the Kabbalah 3 classes, there was a very nice story because we were talking about abundance, prosperity, etc., along those lines. And after the end of the class, by the next week, this one woman came in and she realized she had been discounting her worth as a hairstylist. So she was giving everybody discount through the class. She had realized that it wasn't so much about giving a discount. Yes, here and there, okay, if a person's falling on hard times or however you want to look at it. But she understood that she was devaluing her own self. So she came back the next week and she said, that's it. She was telling the experience, she decided she was worth her original price. And so she started to tell people who are coming consistently, just looking for a discount. She says, I'm sorry, no, this is what I charge you. That's it. And she said it was tough because she had to risk losing clients and even losing that discount. But what did she find out? People didn't leave. And in fact, a couple new people came along because she upped her self-worth and therefore she vibrated to the universe her value, her worth of herself. And therefore people who felt value in what she did for them, they were willing to pay. Now again, I'm not telling you, all right, go out and beg your boss or tell your boss you're going to, double the salary, et cetera, et cetera. I want you to understand raising your consciousness, because where does our value come from? If you really think about it, our value doesn't come from the money we have, the status we have, the fame and fortune we have, where we live. No, our value, our true value comes from the Creator. So let's remember, the Creator gave us a piece of itself. Now, when you understand, as we do here in the Kabbalah Center, the Creator's light is the only source of lasting fulfillment. And every piece that is implanted inside every human being on earth is infinitely valuable. Because what value did the Creator give us? 100% absolute fulfillment. Eternal bliss, eternal satisfaction, harmony, joy. We can't even fathom it. Completely blissed out. That's the value. So I don't care. Some people looking around, they say, well, again, based on other people, this guy's worth billions and billions of dollars. Woo, he's a valuable member of society. No, you and I are learning, how do we live into our value? Not the status, not the car, not the money, not the whatever. No, it's how much are we living into and living up to, if you will, the value that the Creator gave us. And it's very interesting, and sort of to paraphrase what Michael Berg often says now, he'll say, when he's preparing for a talk, and he's got some ideas, and then he happens either have a dream, or he happens to find in one of the Kabbalistic writings something that matches, then he says he knows it's a sign from the Creator that that's the right thing. Or sometimes even he'll give a talk, and then the next few days he'll be looking through one of the ancient Kabbalistic books and he'll find something similar written there. So yes, I prepared last week for today, and yesterday Michael Berg is giving a talk similar. This point I want to bring out. He says, we look at ourselves, and even if you say, yes, I find worth in myself, I'm a worthy person, I'm deserving, blah, blah, blah. He says it's a drop in the bucket to what is really above us. And he used the idea of, let's call it, an upside down triangle. So we're the little point at the bottom. That's who we think we are. So I don't care if you got billions, if you're the smartest person on earth, whatever it is, if you look above that, there's an expansiveness to what the Creator gave us. And he used the terms, we can only perceive, let's say, 5%, but there's 95% more value the Creator gave us. So even you want to say, yes, I'm worthy and I'm more worthy than anybody else on earth, compared to my true value, our true value, 5% out of 95%. So we want to envision that. How do we live into that value? And that's what we started growing up into spiritually, is our true value. Because there's nothing more valuable than the light of the Creator. It's the only thing that will take away darkness completely. It's the only thing the Creator put in our soul. The Creator didn't give us money, car, houses, etc., etc. No, the Creator gave us a light. We came into this physical world to use the light, talents, and abilities that the Creator gave us to simply act like God. And yes, in this world, when we act like God by shining our light 24/7 to every person on earth, no matter what they say or do, unconditional love, meaning shining our light unconditionally, as we do that, our worth raises up towards our full value, and our life becomes more and more satisfying. And the more you think about it, when you're the easy example, when you've eaten at some gathering so much food, or you went with friends to the restaurant and you just ate and ate and ate and ate and ate till you're like just above full. At that moment, when you're completely satiated, do you really look over and say, what are they eating at that table? What are they eating over there? What's that dessert? No, when you're truly full, you don't care what everybody else is eating. You're completely satiated and satisfied. So then no matter what our 100% looks like, when we're revealing that 100%, when we're living into that perfect form, it's called the Tselem Elokim, the image and likeness of God, when we're living truly into the peace that the Creator gave us, then we don't care about other people. Not in a negative way. We don't have to compare. Well, how come they got 12 rooms in their house? I only have 3. How come they drive that car and I only drive this car? How come they're in that job and I'm in this? No. When you're blissed out, you don't concern yourself with what everybody's got. You have no envy. You have no jealousy. You have no evil eye on them because you're completely blissed out. That's what our job is. And if you think about in a business, the CEO or the owner of that business, ideally, what's their job? Part of their job is to bring people into that business that will make that business successful and grow and be able to bring in, let's say, more revenue and also more employees to expand the business. And how do they do it? They have to assess, if you will, the value of that person coming into the job. But as we've said, as in my case when I went to that interview, my perception of my worth and what I believe they assessed my value to be were different. Their value of me was higher than my worth of myself. That's how they could get away with paying me less than this other guy who did the same job. Now, we could say the same about him. Maybe he was happy to settle for the $200 more, whereas maybe they were willing to pay even another $200. But his self-worth was at that point, but they saw more value because the point of the business is expansion, right? To grow, bring more people in. So I want to tell you, what's the business that we're all in? Yes, some of you have heard me say it. Every human being on earth, 7.5 billion of us are employees of God Incorporated. Think about it. God is the owner. In the endless world, we learned the creator. We can't even call it God. That's already a limited idea. Creator is enough. But the creator that emanated the light, this infinite light, which in essence is what we call God. The creator, the owner of the business, emanated light, created all of its employees, you and me, and filled us with light, seeing our full value. And therefore the Creator, by giving each and every one of us talents and abilities, essentially showed us, told us, the Kabbalah Center teaches us that when we come into this world and we have the appearance of being fragmented into 7.5 billion unique bodies with unique talents, abilities, resources, capabilities, we're still part of that one God Incorporated, and the universe is drawing from us our full value. Like any good boss, like a good parent, wants their children to manifest all the talents and abilities, not just to be okay in life, even if okay is better than 99% of the rest of the world. 100%. And therefore, as parents or as a good employer, you want to draw out from within people all of their value. So how much more when it comes to the spiritual corporation of God Inc.? The Creator and the universe is helping us to draw out our full value. Now, what does that mean, though? That means sometimes the universe has to shake us and wake us up because we're holding our value at a very limited level. Our worth is much less than what our true value is. There's a very nice Kabbalistic story, the Baal Shem Tov, who, let's just say he could see everything. He could look at a person, know everything about him. He was like this with God. You would go on and on, miracle maker, etc. But the stories of the Baal Shem Tov, and I encourage you to read them, he had to fight, like all great Kabbalists, against the limited thinking of the time. He had to be able to put up with being ostracized, being spit on, being criticized, being made fun of, etc. But he just stuck to the road of the light. He wanted to be the best he could be in God Incorporated. So there's one story that he was always guided by the Holy Spirit. So he goes to this house, small, a guy, remember this is in the 1700s. So he goes to this real hovel, and of course everybody at that point now knew who he was. So he knocks on the door with a few of his students on this little hovel, and the man opens the door and he says, hi, I'm the Baal Shem Tov. We'd like to come in and have a meal with you. So the guy, knowing who it is, he starts doing everything he can to, fix up his house. He puts on, the one nice tablecloth he has, et cetera, et cetera. And he's, feeding the Baal Shem Tov and the students. And the students of the Baal Shem Tov notice that, what is the Baal Shem Tov? He's eating everything. Almost, what? Thank you. Like a glutton. Okay, so he's eating, and he's looking at the guy, give me more, give me more. Well, this family lived off the milk and the butter and the cream from the one cow they had. So he keeps asking more and more and more and more, and he's eating up everything in the house. So finally the poor man looks at his wife. He says, we only have the cow left. So they go out and they slaughter the cow and they fix it. They prepare it for the Baal Shem. He eats everything. And when there's literally nothing left, then he leaves. As he leaves, the students look at him. He said, Master, this is a poor man. We don't see you do things like that. In our eyes, usually you're the one who has compassion and you help them and this and this. He says, I just did. A few months later, they come back into town and now they see what used to be the poor man. Now he's in a regal carriage, right? He lives in a nice house. He's respected in the city, etc. But he also very generous. So of course the students run to this guy because they recognize it. What happened? What happened? He says, well, after you and your master were there, the Baal Shem Tov were there, and I had nothing. He says, then the only thing I could do, I went out to the backyard, out in the forest, and I just begged the Creator for sustenance, to help. We had nothing. And he says, from that point, I was shown ways and means, without giving you all the details, ways and means to make a business. I found some startup money, etc., and now I've become, as you see. The point being that had the Baal Shem Tov not eaten this man out of house and home, he would never have had the desire, he would have never surrendered his limited self-worth to the true value that the Creator gave him. Because when he was wealthy, we have to understand, and we learn here in the center, that means that was the wealth that the Creator gave him. But he allowed his opponent, he allowed his adversary, his ego, that parasite in his head, to keep him limited. Well, as long as he had food in this little hovel and he could manage day by day, that was enough for him. No. So sometimes you and I, as employees of God Inc. in this universe, sometimes the universe has to do the same thing to us. Sometimes got to, hello, you're worth more than that. And again, I'm not telling you to have ego and now start being arrogant. But when you look in the mirror, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Look at the mirror and say, are you living into your potential? Are you living into the value that God gave you? It's not self-given. You ever heard that idea? I mean, we often say, yes, I have God-given talents. Or people talk about, oh, they have God-given talents and abilities in whatever. I have yet to hear, and probably some are going to say, oh, I heard somebody. I have self-given talent and abilities. No, it's God-given, meaning God gave us the potential. Our job is to live into it, make it actual. So this universal corporation that includes everybody on earth, it also has a local branch. Because God Incorporated is in that endless world. That's where we were established as full value pieces of the Creator. But I believe that there's a local branch here on earth that also, in a similar way, includes every human being on earth, sees the value in every person on earth, teaching us to see the value in ourselves and therefore see the value in other people. And it's exactly where we are now, the Kabbalah Center, because it comes from a lineage from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, author of the Zohar, through the Ari, great Kabbalists to explain things in a way that was more detail-oriented in different ways, through the Baal Shem Tov, down through Rav Ashlag, through Rav Brandwein, to the Rav and Karen, that brought it to the entire world. And the purpose of the center is to bring every human being into unity, to use the value, the talents and abilities the Creator gave each and every one of us to work together. Isn't that what a physical business is? You don't just hire vice presidents, 300 vice presidents to run the business. You need the president, you need the managers, you need the line workers, you need the janitors, you need everybody. You need everybody's talent and ability to work together. And that's what the Kabbalah Center has been doing from its origin with Rav Ashlag in 1922, and we're coming up to our 100th anniversary next year, to the great transformation that came about in 1969 when the Rav and Karen were given the mantle of the center as Rav Brandwein, the Rav's teacher, passed from this world, to bring this wisdom to every person on earth. And those of you who are with us from around the world, you're a beneficiary of that. We here are beneficiaries of that. And that it literally is a way to bring the world into unity. So I want to share with you a story and see how it fits in closing. So it goes like this. A father said to his daughter, "You've graduated with honors. Here's a car that I bought many years ago. It's pretty old now, but before I give it to you, take it to the used car lot downtown and tell them that I want to sell it and see how much they will offer you for it." So the daughter went to the used car lot, returned to the father and said, "They offered me $1,000 because they said it looks pretty worn out." So the father said, "Well, now take it to the pawn shop." Daughter went to the pawn shop and she returned to her father and she said, "The pawn shop offered only $100 because it's an old car." You know who the car is. So the father asked his daughter, "Go to a car club now and show them the car." The daughter then took the car to the club and returned and told her father, "Some people at the club offered me $100,000 for it because, quote, it's an iconic car and sought by many collectors." So now the father said this to his daughter, which is a lesson for you and I. The right place values you the right way. If you are not valued, do not be angry. It means you're in the wrong place. Those who know your value are those who appreciate you. Never stay in a place where no one sees your value. So what I want us to think about, don't let others dictate your value. Remember that God gave you the value, gave you a piece of itself, and there's nothing more valuable than that. God gave us unique talents and abilities to be able to do all that we can do. And the Kabbalists teach us that there's no human being on earth who can replace us. Every person is essential. In fact, the Kabbalists even go so far as to say that we need to think in spiritual terms, that the entire world depends on our next action. They say, imagine the world is exactly 50-50, and the next action that we do, each of us do, is going to tilt the balance one way or another for the entire world. Can't have much more value than that. So today, it's time to go out and live into that value. Rise above what others say about you. Be confident in your godly nature by sharing love, kindness, and compassion to all human beings. Because as you do that, you help them awaken their awareness of their true value. You help them raise whatever they thought their self-worth was, that was compared to other people, into that true value of seeing only themselves, the peace of God that they've been given, and they will live into it as we're living into it. They will wake up their pure light nature, and they will live their fullest godly value, which will bring each and every one of us into that entrance of the Garden of Eden, bring us into heaven on earth, and establish or reestablish peace and harmony among all peoples. God bless. Okay. So thank you for joining us. This is our time of our offering. And as always, one, I want to thank you all for the support that you give us, those of you here, those of you online, right? Some of you are already doing the recurring donations, which we really appreciate it, because it helps us establish a understanding of what we can do with the projects of the center. And I just want to remind you, because I don't think I've done it in a while, and maybe we have some new people here, but I encourage you at least have this Zohar, a pocket Zohar to keep with you, keep around you. And those of you who already have it, make sure you're giving it to other people. The faster we spread the Zohar, the light of God becomes awakened in every human being just because the light shines out of these books. Yes, out of these books, the endless light. And as like will attract like, it shines right into the heart and soul of every person as it's awakening that greater sense of our value in us, so we will live more and more into it. It will do the same for others. And ultimately, the Kabbalists teach us a very simple thing. As I know, for the 34 years I'm in the center, the Rav and Karen have always said to me and to all of us, you walk in a dark room, you turn on the light will take away the darkness. So in a spiritual level, the light of the Zohar is that which will take away the darkness. And when the darkness is gone, the chaos will go with it. The confusion will go with it. And everybody will be able to see, one, their own true value, and they will be able to see so clearly how cause and effects worked that they won't do anything of a negative nature, because it'll be clear in their own eyes what negative thing will come back to them. And they'll see clearly, like you and I understand, that the more they give, the more they share, the more love, kindness, and compassion they bring into the world, the more that will come back many, many times over. So this is why we take these few moments just to bless our offering, so that each of us can put greater consciousness, that higher level that we've just raised today, our self-worth, closer and closer to our true value. Imagine you've injected that into this gift and this offering. It has to go out more intensively and more powerfully to awaken the soul of God inside each person, and that awareness of the cause and effect. By doing good things will come back with an absolute certainty. So just hold your offering in your hand. Let's close our eyes. Those of you who are online with us, I've put the link on so you can share your contribution afterwards. One is just to be appreciative, to be thankful for this awareness that we've gained today, that our true value is many, many times greater than the worth we've had of ourselves up to this moment. And we inject into this offering our love, our light, and bringing into this offering more of that 95% that we have yet to reveal, that by sharing it with others, by bringing a greater spiritual awakening to every person on earth, that we will have a greater spiritual awakening, greater clarity in our own lives, the direction to go, the inspiration that we need. We'll hear that voice of the Creator exclusively in our heads. to be guided purely and perfectly by the light of God, by that peace of God inside of us, and by supporting the spread of the Zohar and this wisdom, speeding up the process to bring this to each person on earth, to achieve the critical mass that will shift the balance of cosmic power from darkness to light, from chaos to order, for every human being on earth. And together we say, Amen. So thank you all online who are joining us. Thank you for all of you who are here with us. God bless. Have an amazing week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for joining us. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to this channel that you'll be notified when we post new videos. Share the video with your friends, they can also benefit. And check out the website, www.kabbalah.com. That's Kabbalah, for hundreds of articles and classes. Wish you an amazing day, and God bless.